Please welcome the editor-in-chief, the great John Solomon from Just the News, who broke this story at 7:49. Mr. Solomon, how are you?
I am well, guys. Good to be with you.
So I don't know if you heard everything I was talking about, but basically Pop's going to get on the stage. We know he's going to get hammered. We know Trump's going to bring this. We've got to give him something. The old wrap-up smear that Nancy Pelosi told us about a long time ago. Put it out there, let the media run with it, and then point to it as the thing to say, no, look at this right here. So Morell goes to Brennan. Brennan is very happy to sign on. Tell us what else we know.
I want to read you this quote. Just came into me just 30 seconds ago. It's from the former intelligence chief of the FBI. By the way, not a signatory to the letter. One of the most respected people in the intelligence community. He was the very first intelligence chief of the FBI. So he's been around. He's got credentials on the Republican, the Democrat, independent side. This wasn't just a talking point to toss back at Trump. It was a premeditated and admitted lie to the American people, designed specifically to deceive and hide the truth. And for what? To help elect a politician, ? What a steep and sad cost to the soul for such a meager goal. What a powerful rebuke to what we now know. Let's think of what the last 2 years, we've been told time and time again that whether there was evidence or not, the laptop, that these 51 just had a good intention. They were trying to be good patriots, warning the Americans off to something that looked like a Russian information or Russian disinformation campaign. What do we know it is now? We now know it was a purely political event, instigated and coordinated by the Biden campaign, and more importantly, intended to give, as this email that we broke tonight says, intended to give Joe Biden a cheap talking point to counter Donald Trump. Now, I want to put this in perspective. The email you have up, the email we just made public, the one that we're just referencing, is between two former CIA directors, Michael Morell, John Brennan. They both worked under President Barack Obama. These are men who got their bona fides and credentials from the American taxpayer, from the trust of the American taxpayer to run our intelligence community. Both of them are steeped in the tactics known as PSYOPs, or intelligence warfare, or as some people say in layman's terms, the creation of false realities to help America win wars and propaganda and other things. These two men were willing to apply those tactics, the illusion or creation of false reality that somehow the laptop was a Russian disinformation operation. By the way, without any basis for it. There's nothing in the letter that proves it. The DNI says there was no evidence. And more importantly, the FBI had the laptop and had already corroborated its contents going back to December 2019. These two men took tactics that the intelligence community developed at a taxpayer expense to fight our enemies, and they turned it against the American people to deceive us, to keep us from making a full informed decision about Joe Biden, Hunter Biden, and Donald Trump just before the 2020 election. That's what happened. When Joe Biden whips that out, it's already been coordinated with the campaign. Mike Morell admits that's what he wanted Joe Biden to be able to do. And this creation of a false reality, this very carefully crafted, worded letter, was designed to trick us into thinking something bad had happened with the laptop, when in fact, the only thing bad about the laptop was the proof that Joe Biden and Hunter Biden had an influence peddling scheme going on. It really is a very grave moment to absorb this email and see this. Two CIA directors emailing each other with impunity, realizing that their goal here was to influence the American people in an election using their CIA bona fides.
And here it is, the emails, we have it on the screen right now. And just for anyone who hasn't heard, I haven't gotten that far in the article yet, but here it is. Mike Morell says to John Brennan, John, can I add your name to this list? We will be adding Leon, meaning Panetta, I assume, right. Sue Gordon, Jay Johnson, who I just saw on TV today talking about the border, George, Lisa Monaco, and Mike Rogers, who Mike Rogers ended up not signing on to this, John, right?
Actually, two Mike Rogers signed. One signed on to it, the former House Intelligence Committee chairman. The other, the former NSA director, did not sign on to it. And listen, I've talked to some people like Dan Hoffman, former CIA station chief, our premier expert in Russian disinformation. He was our CIA guy in Moscow. I asked him a long time ago, about a year and a half ago, why didn't you sign this? They certainly approached you. Oh, they approached me. Why didn't you sign it? Because there wasn't an iota of evidence to back up. I wasn't going to sign my name to something for which there was no proof. So there are people in the intelligence community that take their bona fides seriously, that won't sign something just to create political effect. They actually want the evidence if they're going to put their name to it. And I think that's what Kevin Brock, the former FBI chief who just sent me the statement, is getting at. Why would people that got their bona fides from we, the American people, our tax dollars, our intelligence authorities. Why would they use information to deceive us to help one candidate over the other? It's just something that maybe 20 years ago would be unimaginable in American politics.
So where does Tony Blinken now stand in this? He's kind of tried to distance himself, said, so does this, I guess this specific email doesn't mention him or bring him any closer to it, but where do you think we stand with him?
Yeah. My good friend Sean Blinken, Sean Hannity likes to call him Winkin' Blinken. I think he's winking bobbing Blinken now, right? He's bobbing. He did the rope-a-dope on us the other day. What did he say? He said, it wasn't my idea, this letter. No one accused you of having the idea. You've been accused of instigating it, putting it in motion. And let me tell you something that most of the media are ignoring. This is so important. Real America's Voice got this right. Just the News got this right. Tony Blinken doesn't just make the call that Mike Morrell uses in his own word, triggered the letter, right? That's Mike Morrell. Mike Morrell said, hey, he didn't ask me to do it, but he triggered the idea for me to do it, all right? But a few hours after that call, Tony Blinken sends an email to Mike Morrell. It's the payload that makes the letter explosive. It's an article from USA Today, by the way, an article that isn't true. It said the FBI thought this might be a disinformation campaign. No, it didn't. The FBI knew the laptop was real already. It had the laptop. But let's set that aside that USA Today was wrong, because we know the media is often wrong, right? Blinken sends the article that then gives Morrell the ability to say this isn't just a Russian information operation, which means a Russian operation that could be true, but trying to influence Americans. It's a Russian disinformation operation, which, by the way, is what all the media globbed onto, right? All the censors, the big tech people, Twitter, they globbed onto that concept that this was Russian disinformation. Tony Blinken's the guy that sends it to Mike Morrell. He can bob and weave and blink all he wants. He played a major role in this, and he doesn't want to own up to it. Why? Because it's as hideous as we now know in this email. This was an effort to deceive the American people. Shameful.
Yeah, the intent of all of this is really tremendous in all of this. And, you know, last time you were on, last week, I guess, it seems like we get something breaking now every couple of days with Biden and the people around him. Yeah. We talked about the fact that there seemed to be more whistleblowers coming forward, and good for that. And now we have another one.
Sure do.
Not to move off this topic. Again, this isn't just the news tonight. Everybody, 7:49, it broke. Ex-CIA boss told colleague Hunter Biden laptop letter a talking point. Go read it. It's already on all of our social media. But while I have you, John, before we get to your great book I want to talk to you about as well, but let's just talk about this FBI form that we got. Yeah. Well, before we finish, so what does Jim Jordan do now with this? Is this what happens from here?
Well, listen, he has a lot of leverage. He's demanding that Anthony Blinken, as is the House Intelligence Committee Chairman Mike Turner, they're demanding that Anthony Blinken answer questions under oath. You got to give us responses and give us documents. It's going to be uncomfortable for Anthony Blinken because he has this thing, and Mike Morrell's documents keep eking out, and they're boxing in Blinken. It looks like Blinken ain't really giving us an honest account, right? At least Mike Morrell, when he went in, admitted the truth. Listen, I was trying to help Joe Biden win the election. I was trying to influence the election. I coordinated with the campaign. You got me. Tony Blinken's still doing the rope-a-dope, right? He's doing the bad version of the diplomatic Muhammad Ali. And he's bouncing around the ring, trying to hope we're not going to figure this out. The American people have figured this out already. But Blinken has another problem. It starts with Ron Johnson and Chuck Grassley, because just before the Senate approved Blinken to be our chief diplomat, Secretary of State for Joe Biden, shortly after this whole letter mirage thing that he helped trigger, according to Mike Morrell, he was asked something very specific. Did you ever email or correspond with Hunter Biden? And he said no. Did you ever text with Hunter Biden? No. I had one meeting with him. We mourned Bo Biden's loss. Not sure that's really what went on in the meeting, but we'll get to that later. But now Chuck Grassley and Ron Johnson said, Mr. Secretary, you lied. Here's a text message. Here's an email. And oh, by the way, your wife, who also worked with you at the State Bureau, she also was corresponding with Hunter Biden. You lied to us. Now we don't trust you anymore. Go get all documents you ever have of any contact with Hunter Biden, send it to us. This is going to get very uncomfortable for Blinken. It's a double-sided attack, both times challenging his credibility. And what's really important here is that I think Tony Blinken is our chief diplomat, right? He has to have the trust of people when he's dealing with both our adversaries and our allies have to trust him. And we now know that he and his crony friends in the intelligence community were willing to accuse a nuclear-armed superpower, i.e. Russia, of meddling in our election, knowing it wasn't true, knowing it was just a talking point, knowing that there wasn't an iota of evidence. How does he go have another conversation with his counterpart in Russia or Ukraine or Israel? Because they're thinking, hey, you could do that to us someday? Blinken is handicapped by these allegations now surfacing. Maybe the Democratic media in America will protect him a little bit, but there are people, world leaders I've talked to since I broke this story 2 weeks ago, that say, you know what? I'm kind of creeped out about dealing with this guy. I don't feel good about this.
Yeah.
That's a real problem for the Biden administration at a very turbulent time in our world.
Yeah. All right. FBI Form 1023, a secret source report basically memorizing information between a clandestine source, right, and an FBI agent. So this is the form that supposedly now the FBI has been sitting on unclassified, which I thought was the key word in all of this because, well, let me ask you a very basic question. What's the percentage I asked the audience, it came in last night at 0%. What's the percentage you put on that anyone actually gets this document before either it disappears or it's classified or they just don't, they say, yeah, we're not turning it over?
I think there's a very good chance that they will get this. There are two possibilities, right? The first thing is to force Chris Wray to do it, which is what the subpoena does. I don't think Chris Wray is itching for a fight right now to protect Joe Biden. He's got bigger fish to fry. He's got to get Section 702 warrantless spying approved. He needs friends in Congress, not enemies, and Jim Jordan is one of those people. He needs to be on his side. I don't think he's going to, I think he'll probably most likely give it up because, by the way, the courts have made it clear. If there's a constitutional reason for Congress to have it, you got to give it up anyway. So why go through the fight and alienate people? And by the way, you know from Grassley and Comer's letter and Jim Jordan's statements today, the FBI, these whistleblowers already told them what's in it. They already know what's in it. So you're not going to fool the Congress. I think they'll actually give it up. I don't think it won't get disappeared from. There are things that have disappeared. This isn't one that's going to disappear.
Do you know, do we know, is it drafted, is it recent or was it drafted when he was VP? I know a lot about this. Yeah, let's go walk through the real specifics of what we know and how we know it. That's always really helpful for people. What is a Form 1023? I'm an FBI documents nerd, so I got to admit that up front. A 1023 is a very important document. When agents meet with a confirmed informant, someone that's a registered informant, they call them confidential human sources, we would call them informants, they fill out a form on any actionable information that confidential human source gave them. When Christopher Steele was giving us the bogus stuff in the Steele dossier, there would be a 1023 form. When Stefan Halper gave very meaningful information, by the way, I have these Stefan Halper 1023 forms, get filled out. Stefan Halper actually gave exculpatory evidence to the FBI that exonerated Donald Trump, Carter Page. They just didn't tell the FISA court about it. But that was a 1023 form. When a drug gang member who's an informant gives something to an FBI informant, this form gets filled out. It's the action report. Hey, we got to look at this. This is something the informant told us that is actionable. It typically goes to an analyst, typically goes to other agents and other directors. It may go to a supervisor, and someone's supposed to go investigate it. The concern is this wasn't investigated. Now, when did it come in? Now, the allegation concerns activity when Joe Biden was vice president. And we know it involves Ukraine. I've been able to confirm that. I've reported that on Real America's Voice and Just the News. It came in, the allegation came in long after Joe Biden was vice president. He was retired, but it came in June 2020. What does that mean? It came in as right in the middle of the 2020 election campaign. Someone told the FBI the man running for president might have done a pay-to-play bribery scheme when he was vice president. And the question that these senators and congressmen have now is, what did the FBI do to it? I think they already know the answer. I think the FBI whistleblowers have told them this got put into the Hunter Biden protection circular file. Nobody looked at it. But we'll find out, let's follow the facts where they are. But that's what we know. June 2020, when it came in, the allegation involves things before 2016 when Joe Biden was vice president. It involves Ukraine, and there's at least one and maybe two FBI whistleblowers that have affirmed what's in it and why it's important. Now, are either one of those, do we know the person who actually filled out the form?
We don't know that. We don't know that yet. No, there's some reason to think that at least one of the people is involved in the creation or review of the document, but not much more than that right now. We're a little vague on those details right now.
And so this form is not indexed right now to a currently open investigation. Is that what you're saying?
We don't know. That we don't know, right? There could be an open investigation for which no action was taken, meaning that it's just chronically open, which is, by the way, sometimes something the FBI has done in the past to keep oversight committees from being able to say, oh, we can't give it to you. It's part of an open investigation. Wait a second. came in June 2020. It's like 2023. What's going on? So that's going to be some of the conversations and the dance that Congress and the FBI might do. My guess is, and I've been talking to FBI sources, my guess is that Chris Wray will find some way for Congress to review this in a SCIF or review this in a sensitive document location. I think Jim Jordan's probably going to get what he wants. He got the bank. Remember, James Comer got the bank records. Treasury didn't want to give them. And you know what? You know what the Republicans are getting good at saying? Okay, don't give it to us. We're taking your salary away come October 1st. So prepare to work for free. They're going to use that Holman rule and start defunding anyone who doesn't cooperate. I don't think Chris Wray wants to work for free. He already has to use the FBI jet to go back and forth from home. I don't think he wants to lose his salary on top of it.
Yeah, I hope the Republicans don't forget that a whistleblower and an allegation of a quid pro quo was basically the bar that's been set for impeachment by the Democrats. So I hope the Republicans don't forget that. I got a couple minutes left. Tell us about your great new book. Why'd you want to write this? And tell us a little bit about it.
Probably for very things like what we're talking about now, right? In 2019, 2020, 2021, there was this extraordinary effort at censorship in America. The laptop stories I wrote, Miranda wrote, were censored because we were told it was disinformation when it wasn't. But it really bothered me that there were people in my profession, young journalists who saw nothing wrong with it, young Americans who saw nothing wrong with it. And I was wondering, where is the outrage? And I learned something very painful, Damon. I learned that there are one, maybe two generations of young adults who went through schools and weren't taught the same civic lessons you and I were taught. They weren't taught the Bill of Rights. They weren't taught why the First Amendment was first. They weren't taught about the importance of free speech to our founding fathers who thought it was essential to the foundation of our constitutional republic. They actually were taught, some of them tell me now because I've done my research, some teachers told them there might be instances where the government should censor information for the good of the larger public, or what they call the collective. I don't know what the hell the collective is. Sounds like something from Star Trek. But whatever they taught these kids, there's one or two generations that got this poison in their mind, and they didn't get what we got. So I've been saying to myself for some time, I want to do something to help parents, grandparents, aunts, and uncles to maybe tell their children something that their teachers aren't. Brave Books came to me. They're a great new young children book creator. They're the counterbalance, a conservative pro-America counterbalance to Scholastic Books. And they said, let's do a book together. I said, I know what I want to do. I want to do a book about free speech. My son's hamster is the star of the book, Chunk, the very pudgy hamster. He's a newspaper editor. He's trying to get his newspaper out. The tubes in the hamster village are clogged. Censors, those tubes are allegories, obviously, for social media. And he can't tell the hamster community it's about to be flooded by a dangerous flood. A courageous dog comes in, solves it. And it's a great book. It's a fun story, delicious pictures. Yeah. Bravebooks.us. You get it free this month if you subscribe to the book club. You don't get anything free in the economy anymore.
That's right. Bravebooks.us. John, I know you got a busy night ahead breaking this news. I want to thank you so much for giving us first shot at it. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much. We look forward to seeing you in New York.
Love your show, guys. See you soon.
The great John Solomon, live from Studio 6B.